Hello, my name is Joanna, and I'm gonna talk about my lab project. So the lab project, I've done it about the climate change in Spain. It is a collection of data from 1900 until 2020 for low and high elevation areas as well. The area of study selected is the whole Spain. I've selected this area of study mainly because I'm from there and I'm familiar with the place, but also because it's a place that it's having a lot of drought events frequently. So in Spain, we have a high quantity of artificial lakes to store the water, especially due to these limited conditions during the year. All this water also comes from high elevation areas, from mountain areas. So it's also very important to study how climate change affects high elevation areas. Nowadays, we have open source data online, but the main problem is the low availability of climatic data in high elevation areas. Even though there is this Pyrenean Climate Change Observatory that studied the effect of climate change on the Pyrenean mountain range, which is the natural border between France and Spain. And as we can observe, they found a warming from 1980s until 2010. The objective of this study is to determine the possible influence of elevation on the rate of temperature change over time in Spain. So for the purpose of this study, 103 meteorological stations from all Spain were selected. You can see on the map the station selected, and all the data was obtained from the Global Historical Climatology Network. You have the link on the left if you want to take a look. The methodology that I have followed is mainly all the data obtained was monthly. So all the data obtained, was monthly mean annual temperature for this 103 station, and the climatic variable analyzed was the mean annual temperature. First of all, I've analyzed how this mean annual temperature changed over time for the time period mentioned before, and then the changes in seasonality as well. Afterwards, the elevation values were given to each station, and I selected two stations located in high elevation and two in low elevation to see how this mean annual temperature change over time for these areas. So first of all, we want to answer the questions, is the climate change already affecting in the area of study? So for that, we can see on the right graph, the mean annual temperature change for the period of the study. We don't observe an increase from the 900 until the 975, more or less, but from the 975, 960, I would say, we observe a remarkable increase until nowadays. In addition, we can observe on the left graph the seasonality change for the 2020. So we have warmer temperatures in spring and winter, but between 1950 and the year 1980, we will observe that remarkable change. So I see elevation influencing this rate of temperature increase. To know that, you can observe on the left graph the two high elevation stations selected, and we observe an increase around 3-4 degrees compared to the low elevation stations on the right side of the slide. We observe some increase as well, but not, I would say there is more variability, but it's just through observing the graph, so we cannot get any conclusions about this just from the observation. From the observation, we can say that the climate change seems to have an effect on the area of study. As mentioned before, the mean annual temperature showed a perceivable increase in the area of study since 1960 approximately. And nowadays, the winter temperature seems to be warmer, thus the seasonality change over time. And last but not least, not clear differences between the rate of temperature increase between high elevation and low elevation areas. I would say we would need more data and more data from mountainous region as well in order to find the proper conclusion for this project. So I believe that further development of this project could help also in finding solutions, finding ways to adapt to climate change in areas with elevation, and also find forest management plans as well to obtain a higher water yield, for example, in order to cope with all these drought events that I mentioned before. So that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.